What's going on, YouTube world? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks once again for tuning in. I'm Dusty, and you already know it. This is the Shred Academy. When learning to jump, the actual jump construction and size of the jump can play an integral part in your success learning to jump and progressing. That's why today we're going to talk about how to choose the perfect mountain bike jump for learning to jump, and how the size of your jump can affect your progression. First, let's introduce you to the tabletop. Now, for someone who's just learning to jump, these style jumps are perfect for progression because they have very little consequence. That's as long as they're built to set you up for success. What does he mean by that? Well, to help explain, I'm going to tell you why I think this jump is one of the most perfect jumps for beginner mountain bike jump progression. We're going to start with the lip of this jump. Now, since this lip is only about 3 feet tall, this is about the smallest size lip I'd recommend for a beginner mountain bike jump. Now, when it comes to the lip of the jump, we're going to be looking at length of the lip of the jump and the shape of the jump. It's a massive advantage to have the length of the lip of the jump be at least as long as the wheelbase of the bike. So why is it an advantage to have the length of the lip of the jump be at least the length of a wheelbase of the mountain bike? There are 3 basic steps to jumping: body weight preload, accepting the transition, and then finally your form to get you off the end of the lip. If your whole bike is already on the lip of the jump, meaning it's already started its trajectory up to its arc that it needs to make, then it's going to be much easier for the rider to create a consistent counterweight for this front wheel to keep going up at the same angle as the transition of the jump, while your rear wheel continues to travel up towards where the front tire left. It doesn't have any extra transition to go through. And this is why I said having a lip of a jump that's 3 feet tall is about the smallest you can have a lip of the jump, because any smaller and the whole bike really won't fit on the lip of the jump. You'll have half the bike on the trail and then half the bike on the actual jump itself, making it harder for the rider to create a consistent front wheel lift and consistent rear shock preload, having to go through this big transition rather than just have to continue up a consistent transition. Now let's talk about the shape of the lip. The shape or transition to this jump is very mellow, which provides 2 crucial advantages to the rider. First, it's going to mellow out the G-forces that the rider is going to experience as they go through the beginning transition of the jump, transitioning from going straight down the trail to up the face of the jump. It's at this time that the rider can feel sucked toward the bars as they make this direction change. So a mellower transition and a mellower lip makes this direction change easier. The second advantage is when it comes to the ease of the front wheel lift and creating this counterweight. With a mellow transition, the rider isn't going to have to position his hips as far back and lean as far back with their upper body to keep the front wheel going up. The rider also isn't going to feel a bigger risk of looping out by leaning back as far as they need to create this counterweight. More simply put, a mellower lip is going to be more advantageous for riders to get more comfortable going through the steps of the J-hop on an upwards incline without fear of looping out. We've talked about lip construction, size, and shape. Now let's talk about the table of the tabletop.
How long should it be?
I find it's best when the length of the tabletop is, again, at least the length of a mountain bike wheelbase, or just a hair longer. Why? Let's talk about it for a second. But Dusty, wouldn't you want the table to be shorter so they don't have to travel in the air for so long? Not necessarily, and here's exactly why. There are certain steps to the J-hop that happen on the lip, and then there are the remaining steps that happen in the air. As we travel up the lip and start to leave the lip with the front wheel, it's our job to create a counterweight so this front wheel can continue going up at the same angle of the lip until the rear wheel leaves the lip at the same place the front wheel did. If we follow my front wheel right now, currently, even though I created a little more front wheel lift than I needed to, right now my front wheel has cleared half of the tabletop, and I'm only halfway through the J-hop motions. I still need to finish bringing my hips up and over. I'll need to roll the bike forward and then set the front wheel down and then the rear tire. If the tabletop was only this long, I'd have to go through the rest of the motions really quickly to make the sweet spot of the transition. Having the table be at least a bike length long gives the rider ample time to finish their motions comfortably, spot their landing, and then set the front wheel down, followed by the rear tire. Again, more simply put, a table with the length of at least a bike length and maybe just a bit longer gives the rider plenty of time to complete the J-hop motions so they don't feel rushed, and their arc doesn't have to be super tall and super back down again off of a mellow lip. They can continue that mellow transition into the arc they create to bring themselves to the landing. What about the shape of the tabletop? Yes, it should be, square and wide, but it should also run slightly downhill. And this is going to help absorb as you progress and get closer to landing on the sweet spot of the landing. So a slight angle to that tabletop can really smoothen out your progression. And now finally, the landing. And a proper landing can really help you go to the next feature. How could a landing be bad? Well, let's talk about why this one's good. We'll start off by talking about the angle of the landing. And the angle of this landing isn't too steep because the lip itself isn't that steep. So your arc going across isn't that tall, and a mellower landing is going to aid you in a softer impact. So mellower takeoff, mellower landing. Steeper takeoff, steeper landing. This one is about 1 bike length, 2 bike lengths, a little over 3 bike lengths. Now, why is that so good? A long landing is important for jumping progression because it gives the rider space to work on their speed versus form and pop off the lip without having to worry about overshooting or really undershooting, again, having that slightly downwards angled table. To a nice long landing gives the rider the ability to progress safely and land with some good landing beneath them without having to worry about finding a small sweet spot. Before we end the video, let's talk about shorter lips and how short and steep lips can negatively affect your ability to learn to jump and progress. We all love a good homemade ramp or the MTB hoppers that have become so popular and easy to take to new spots. But these smaller jumps do have some negative impacts or aren't setting up new jumpers for complete success with how short they are. If the actual face of the jump is shorter than the wheelbase of the bike, the front wheel is gonna be off of the ramp or jump before the back wheel has started to make its transition up the face of the jump, meaning the rider is gonna have to work harder as this rear wheel goes from flat down the trail to then up the transition, rather than the whole bike already being facing up this transition, making it a little easier for the rider. Even though this homemade ramp doesn't look that steep, it actually is. It stands about a foot or a little bit over and is only about 1.5 to 2 feet long. Now, when you add short and steep together like this jump, it not only is hindering the jumper because their bike isn't going up the whole transition yet before the front tire has to leave, it's also making it harder for them to keep the front wheel driving up because the G forces in this direction change is definitely going to want to suck them into the bike, and they're not going to feel comfortable putting their hips as far enough back as they have to counteract the almost slowing down that's going to occur as your rear wheel starts to travel up this steep jump. That's going to want to make your front wheel dive towards the ground. So small jumps can be fun, but the rider is going to have to know to utilize their form in a different way if they want to get the most out of these small ramps. If the rider was just using the two-wheeled lift right here, they'd be picking their rear wheel up over the ramp instead of driving it up the ramp and off. So small ramps can be good to force you into good form, but if you're not aware of it, they can be hindering your ability to jump. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you guys learned a little bit on how to choose the perfect jump when you're just starting out or progressing. If you liked this video, please make sure to let me know in the comments, and always make sure to like, share with your friends, and make sure you're all subscribing. We're trying to hit that 10K mark. If you want to see this channel grow and continue, please become a Patreon. The lowest membership is only $5 a month. That's 37 cents a day. It sounds like a very little amount, but as it adds up with all your support, it helps me create this content stress-free, whether I'm going to be able to pay my van payment. Now, if you really resonated with this video and it connected, it helped you out, and you'd like to leave a tip of some kind, please use my PayPal or Venmo link in the video description. I appreciate it. It all goes to helping me survive. Now, if you'd like to rep the Shred Academy with a little bit of merch, we've got some left. The link to that store is as well. The link to that store as well is in the video description. I want to thank all of you once again for watching. If I don't see you till the next time, please make sure to ride hard, ride safe, be kind to everyone on and off the trail. Just a little smile can make the biggest difference in someone's day. If I do see you on the trail, please make sure to come say hello. I'd love to thank you for all your support. But until then, guys, rubber side down.